Welcome to Stream Detroit. I'm Mike McClintock with my co-host Brad Fox. Today we've got Jason Jedlinski, who's the VP of Marketing at 12-Fold. Welcome. Thanks for coming on the show.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
You'll hear not only the people mover in the background now, but some thunder, probably some raindrops because there's copious amounts of rain out there, and it's 105 degrees. So I'm going blazerless. This is our first episode. I hope that's not going to wreck the whole entire thing. It's probably all going to go off the rails right now.
Yeah, just tell me you're going to keep the shirt on, just for, also for the record.
I'm not promising. If it's good for ratings, then I might take it off.
Temperatures like these, you never know.
You never know. You can never. Yeah, exactly. So, well, thanks for coming on. Tell us a little bit, about 12-Fold. I love the idea of the intersection of big data and natural language processing and marketing and all the kind of stuff that you're doing. You guys are doing a lot of stuff.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
We are.
Yeah.
We're sort of at the intersection of some of the greatest things happening in advertising right now. But we see ourselves as bigger than just advertising or ad targeting. Mm-hmm. What we really do is we measure digital content for relevance. Mm-hmm. We understand what a page or a video is about, and we use that right now to help marketers get the right message to the right person at the right time. It's kind of the classic goal since the Don Draper days of advertising is help me make sure my ad gets to the right person.
So that means you're trying to figure out what they're looking at, and saying, well, if he's looking at X, then maybe we should show him X.
You got it.
Maybe X is the wrong word. Maybe I'll go with a different word.
How about bicycles?
Bicycles. There you go.
Or we're in Detroit, cars.
Right.
But yeah, we believe you are what you read. And so if you're on a page about the fuel efficiency of a 2016 model, you didn't get there by mistake. You're probably looking at a new car or considering a new car. So, we've all been in those situations where a plane ticket or a piece of clothing or something else follows you around the web and even now can cross to your phone. It's like, hey, I was looking that up on the web and now I'm on the train and it followed me there. It's lost the sense of context. There's a lot of technology that's got user targeting down. I know this is Mike's tablet. I know, but we've forgotten an advertising message has to be relevant. It has to speak to what you're doing right now. Why would it get noticed? And in a way, we're trying to kind of, we're putting life back into the banner ad by saying these things actually could be clicked on if it was relevant to the page you're reading. Your eye might go over there and notice it. In fact, not might, it does, if it has something to do with what you're looking at.
Right. So instead of trying to figure out that I think Joe is looking for a Model T.
Yep.
You're just saying, look, if they're reading a Model T article or looking at a Model T video, then they're probably interested in Model Ts. So is that kind of really, that's it in a nutshell what you're doing?
You just gave
that's a really good idea. Why isn't everybody doing that?
There's a number of people that try doing that with keywords or directories or other things that sort of approximate content.
Right.
But the bulk of the spend today follows just a traditional pattern. People have been buying content or buying media based on the ratings of a show, based on the demographics of a magazine, based on who do we think goes to Forbes.com or Car and Driver for longer than there have been websites. Right. So there's a lot of habit built up into doing things that way. But I think the biggest reason people aren't buying relevance in a media plan is they're fished in by the lure of I know who's on the other side of the screen.
That's what they think.
They think that
they're guessing.
And in fact, most of the marketers we talk with and the ad agencies know it's a lot of BS. Mm-hmm. They know if you go and I want to reach car buyers. Right. I want to reach new moms. I want to reach newlyweds. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows they're kind of getting a mixed bag. Yep. It's opaque. You don't know what's inside it. Who says they're in the market for a car? Who says this is a newlywed? You're just going on faith. But it feels right to go and say, hey, I'm being super efficient. I'm just buying women 25 to 54 in the suburbs who've had a kid in the last year.
Right.
What if there's a, 24-year-old guy who happens to be wanting to buy that car? Well, he's not a woman 25 to 54 in the suburbs, so you never show him the ad. Right. And it's flawed in a few ways. Because
90% of those women that are in that demographic don't want a car anyways.
Precisely.
Or while they're reading that article, they definitely, they're just, they don't care. They're looking at, I was just going to say recipes, but that's just so wrong.
We can think of something else.
We can edit that out.
But, recipe is a great example where, you said, so why aren't people doing this? A lot of folks who try to say, we're going to put an ad about the page, they'll go and look for a keyword. So they'll say, all right, I'm looking for things that have whipped cream in them because they're a recipe. Well, what you end up happening is, 12 people sick at this restaurant with food poisoning.
Right.
Here's a coupon to go eat at the restaurant.
Ready Whip.
Right? You know, or, you know.
So you can't do it with keyword.
You can,
I
but
mean, I'm sure
it's going to backfire.
But you can't just do it with keyword because you just gave a perfect example of why you can't. So how does it work? How do you figure that out? How do you figure out relevance? It's hard.
It is. We've got a team of smart scientists that essentially unpack the text of a page, not just the headline, not just the URL, not just, you know, what do we know about this, but we're actually looking at the body. We're like a search engine, Google, Yahoo, Bing, we scrape 1 billion URLs every month. Okay. And we actually store the text on our servers saying, even if that page were to change, we'll go back and fetch it. But, you know, we've now got our copy of that text. So then we mine it and we try to say, who was it written for? Who would be reading it? And in your recipe example, there's a big difference between someone who's doing an easy meal for the family on Tuesday night, someone who's trying to impress the in-laws at Thanksgiving with a big feast, and someone who is a professional chef looking for inspiration. They all read recipes. If you just say, I'm going to go buy recipes to sell Bisquick, you'll get all three of those people, but you probably just want the guy doing a quick, easy meal for his kids on Tuesday night.
That's a great point.
So we can look at the language of them and say, this is written for an easy family meal, where this is a 3-hour recipe that's meant for, you know, a first date or something like that.
You're drilling way farther down.
We are.
Way farther.
So it's not just, you know, taking words and assuming, it's a lot of assumptions, right? So maybe you could say this traditional digital advertising is faith-based. I hate that. That was like a classic.
It is.
But, you know, I find it really interesting because, you know, we talk about that, you know, there's a huge difference between relevance and differentiation. You have to have both, right? So differentiation is a square wheel. That's certainly different than a round wheel, but it's not terribly relevant. So in a lot of ways, people are, maybe they're firing ads at square wheels when in fact they want somebody who wants a round wheel with studded tires or something like that. So a relevance piece, I think, is an art, and it's a little bit of art and science, of course, as you guys know, but I think that is like, it's lost in a lot of cases, that whole relevance thing. It's like they think it's relevant, but it's not.
What happens a lot of the time is the brand marketer has more data than ever about their customer. They have all kinds of here in Detroit with auto, you've got the dealers and everything else, so maybe they don't know as much. But through warranties, et cetera, you know a lot about who's buying your product. You can profile them. The CMO probably has a cardboard cutout saying, here's Sally, here's what she reads, here's what she does, here's what she cares about. But too often what happens is when that makes it to a media plan for advertising, it gets abstracted down to something that's easy to buy. A demo, a publication. You know, they read Car and Driver. They go to U.S. News and World Report.
Market Shopper, right? And Market Shopper.
Without all the nuances of what that brand really knows about them. Saying, you know, if someone is buying oatmeal for a healthy family breakfast, they don't spend their whole day reading about lower sugar breakfast or alternatives to cereal. That parent is reading, and this is a real example for a campaign we ran, that parent is reading about bullying in the classroom, tutoring, you know, things like that. Just because those pages have nothing to do with food or breakfast doesn't mean that the parent reading that isn't in the right mindset, caring about, you know, they're not looking up stocks, they're not writing a report for their boss. At the moment they're reading that page, they're thinking about the health and wellness of their family. What better time to go and read
graph? Are you guys building that graph of it? I mean, really, it seems like that's a perfect, there's a lot of data there. You're turning it into information by connecting those dots.
And it's information about content as opposed to us pretending it's information about people. So the distinction is someone else is going to come out and say, Mike read this and then Mike read that. And we're saying, hey, GM, hey, Ford, whoever it is, we'll help you find the types of content where your message resonates best. Is it pages about vehicle safety? Is it fuel efficiency? You know, for a pickup truck, is it hunting and fishing and outdoor? Rodeo, it may have nothing to do with trucks, but is that a place where your message is seen by people who are motivated to engage on it, click on it, read more? So we're mapping what content do your customers read, and better yet, what content are they reading when they choose to hear you, to interact with you, to go down a path with you.
So it seems like a much better way to align with your affinity pillars, right? You know, we know that, you know, having worked in this business, that, you know, any car or vehicle line or any product for that matter has kind of pillars that they align with, whether it's music, technology, kids, rodeo, whatever. So this would be, you know, I would think a much more interesting, efficient, and relevant way to kind of for marketers to get their content aligned with what is relevant to their target market.
Because they couldn't even come up with those personas. You know what I mean? I mean, they just couldn't do it. There's just too many of them. Like turning it on its head, all of a sudden now you've got all kinds of information that's emergent from that. And you can just say, you don't have to know it's Sally. It doesn't have to be cardboard cutout Sally, right? It's, we know that the people who are interested in this truck, this is what they're doing. This is where they're at.
We like to start with the cardboard cutout Sally because the marketer is close to their customer. They say, people like this, they keep buying a Mercedes or they keep buying, whatever it is. So we're going to, we want people who look like them.
Right.
So sure, tell us what you know about them. Tell us what zip codes they live in. Not that we're going to go to try and find cardboard cutouts of them, but it helps us, begin to narrow where should we look. What pillars should we surround? To your point about pillar marketing, I was just going to pull up, some of our infographics. We do stuff in real time to illustrate. This was one we put out today about the Tour de France, saying we looked at attention around the riders in the race, not what was written about them, not what was shared on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, but consumption. If you think about it, we're listening to 30 billion ad impressions every day across the internet. Unlike everyone else, we're not saying, what IP address did it come from? Who's on the other end of that glass? We're just saying, what was the URL? What do we know about that page? So we can listen for very, niche and interesting things. Again, you're not going to find a keyword for TJ Van Garderen, right? So we can listen in a way that's custom to the marketer, custom to their pillars, custom to their goals, and in real time to say, I don't care about content creation, don't really care about social sharing for this purpose because I can't put an ad around a popular tweet. I can buy ads in the tweet stream, etc. But places I can activate, pages I could actually put an ad on. In this case, here's a set of headlines about the Tour de France. Casual fans are reading things like this. Die-hard racing fans are reading things like this. These are pages you can run, and it adapts in real time. So if there's a big news story breaks, if there's a product recall about, airbags, a competitor can jump on that and say, everywhere that AP story runs, from Bloomfield Hills to Sacramento to New Orleans, I want to be on that article. You'd never buy the New Orleans Times-Picayune for Ford, but if there's a Nissan airbag recall and they want to conquest it, all right, give us 5 minutes. You'll be up and running on that.
So that's maybe a good segue to talk about how you guys operate kind of in the digital media ecosystem. So for the first time ever on Big Digital Thinkers, we thought we'd bring up the Lumascape.
Is this where I go?
Some of our listeners and viewers may have seen this before. It's a great way to contextualize the ecosystem, the digital media ecosystem. Historically, to get a message from the marketer to the consumer, there was basically in the middle were publishers, whether it was TV, radio, outdoor, smoke signals or whatever. It was a fairly simple, very simple way to connect the marketer with the consumer. Now you have this in digital media. So Jason, tell us a little bit about where 12Fold fits in this ecosystem, and kind of maybe along the way describing some of these little boxes. We don't have to dive down in there, but where do you guys fit into that ecosystem to help connect a marketer, i.e. Ford, GM, and Toyota, with consumer, cut out cardboard Sally?
So we are sort of in the middle of the sandwich that you see here. Again, brands on the left going through ad agencies to buy media, banners, pre-roll advertisements, could be, the thing that plays before your YouTube video, what have you, mobile, all different formats. The agencies kind of manage the spend. They go through a set of technology saying what to buy, where to buy, who to reach, ultimately getting out to publishers, the websites those ads appear on, who have their own set of technology here in the blue column that are helping them decide what ad should I put on, what ad's going to pay me the most, what ad is going to get, the Detroit Free Press the most bang for its buck, all before the brand marketer can actually talk to the consumer. And what's amazing is this is all happening, in the fraction of a second it takes your page to load. So when we talk about our decisioning of, is this recipe right for Kraft, or is this page right for Ford, we have 10 milliseconds, the same 10 milliseconds anyone else does here to make that decision. So it's staggering the amount of intellectual horsepower that just is behind this whole industry. So the middle of this you could think of as audience discovery. who am I reaching, where am I going to reach them, where am I going to find them. And that's facilitated by DSPs and ad exchanges, which are kind of the clearinghouses or auctions where ad impressions are up for sale. There was a perception a few years back that this is the unsold junk, the ad at the bottom of the page, the stuff no one wanted would get put out like a garage sale.
The cheap stuff, right?
Exactly.
So you could reach a low CPM goal to get as much bang for your buck theoretically as possible.
And these days, what's being traded there is the majority of, well, the growing majority of inventory, because with people who are buying based on cookies, buying based on someone who says they know Mike is on the other end of the screen, they're saying, I've sold this to the local car dealership for $10 a thousand. But if this is a diabetes patient and there's a pharma company who wants to spend $30 a thousand to reach him, well, I'm going to say this one page to this one guy, sorry, local car dealer, you're not getting him. The drug company's coming in. So more and more publishers are putting even their home pages, the top premium stuff in here just to test the waters and say, what could I get for this page?
Which has changed, just drastically in the last 5 years. It was traditionally, even in the digital, kind of within the digital world, ad networks, that was kind of the traditional place or exchanges. And now you have, trading desks, ATDs, agency trading desks, and DSPs, DMPs.
Yep.
And it's constantly changing, but it's interesting to see the growth because typically, to your point, Jason, that, historically it was like, okay, well, let's just, all the stuff that we can't sell, the stuff, the crap that's at the bottom of the page, off to exchange as it goes, and hey, we'd rather get a $2 CPM than Rotten Tomatoes. But that's changing because publishers, by the way, I think the other part from the publisher's perspective is that they're saying, if we're putting more and more inventory, they don't necessarily have to support a larger sales staff.
Correct.
So
they save on commissions, they raise their yield. There's a lot of incentives for them, and they've realized that there's another data stream besides the cost of the ads as revenue coming to the publisher. They can push what they know about the consumer, and they can say, hey, Brad read these 5 articles on Inc. or Entrepreneur.com this month. That tells you he's X, or we think he's X. So they're reselling through, partly through data suppliers, partly through SSPs. They're segmenting their audiences, saying, gone are the days where an ad network would say, you're selling mutual funds. So here's a family of finance sites. And sort of on faith-based, anyone coming to these sites is probably a mutual fund buyer or owner, so have at them. They're going a step farther, really slicing and dicing their inventory.
Yeah, that's cool. So you guys kind of operate in that kind of center segment, if you will. So, like, for example, if somebody came to one of your sales staff, like Bonnie, and said, we really like what you guys are saying. How does the media transaction look? Versus the traditional, here's an IO, buy a bunch of media, put the ads out there, analytics and all that stuff in the back end. What does a media transaction look like? Are you guys in the business of buying from the exchanges media, or is it something you guys, hey, look, this is our data pool? Or is it just purely a data play? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, it's the former. It's the traditional IO that you described. So a brand will come to us and say, we're trying, for tier 2 auto, we're trying to, promote this new model that's coming out. We want to highlight its safety features. We want to highlight its fuel efficiency. We want to highlight XYZ. Our brand strategy team would work with them saying, we think this is the type of content where you'd be successful reaching people. And we propose what we call content targets. It's our version of an audience segment like car intenders or newlyweds or women 25 to 54. To us, it's segments of content. It's types of content. You can think of it as topics. So we go and we put a dollar amount on each topic and we weight it across desktop or mobile or video pre-roll. And then we optimize to see what works. Where we get up and running and, within a week, we're able to start saying, where were we seeing great performance? Where were we seeing a lot of scale? We can forecast it in advance, but until we see that intersection of how does their ad, how does their creative really mesh with the page? Is it resonating with people or not? We don't have, the ability to make that strong recommendation until we're in flight. So we start with the loose target, and then as we go, we refine it and narrow and hone in on performance, saying what worked best, and we just buy that in spades. So to answer your question, I consider us kind of this DMP is a data provider, someone who's basically many of these companies just saying, I know this about Brad, or I happen to know this is Brad's phone, this is Brad's laptop, they belong together, you need me to join those pieces.
The cross screen, which is, it's a buzzword, but it's certainly it's an evolving rapidly phenomenon in our space. And I do have a question about mobile, so we'll get to that in a second.
So those are our peers in that category, are people who say, I know she's a newlywed, I know she's a parent, I know he's a car intender. We're saying, we know what the pages are about. How about you talk to us and we'll find you great pages to run on. So we provide a different type of data. Today, most of our revenue comes through a managed service model where, as I said, someone comes to us, they've got a budget, we recommend how to spend it, and then we go through DSPs and the exchanges and we go buy that. We don't have any relationships with publishers directly. We don't have any preferred deals with anyone. So we're agnostic.
That can be expensive as well, right? If you have a dedicated team to direct publisher relationships, and I work for a network that prided itself on not buying from exchanges and so forth, who shall remain nameless. But that was a key differentiator because they could say, look, we have direct relationships. We're not buying media from that undifferentiated pool.
Right.
Some people might back then would say the cesspool of undifferentiated media, the remnant stuff the crap nobody wants to buy. But they prided themselves on the fact that, hey, look, we have direct relationships. We have buyers that have these hand-picked relationships with great publishers. So there's certainly some value there. In fact, that's kind of how they differentiated themselves from a lot of the networks in that space. But my point is that to develop that kind of a staff, there's kind of two sides of a traditional ad network: is to buy and sell, right? So that's a big staff. And to your point, it's like if you're buying from these exchanges and so forth, where you don't necessarily have to have a staff of 10 to 15 people who are managing those relationships.
I'd argue it's more neutral too, because in that relationship, that staff of 10 to 15 people, they're getting wined and dined, they're rewarded, they've made a minimum commitment, they've brokered the deal, they've said, I'm going to buy 5 million impressions from you this quarter, where we're saying, we owe no one anything. We have no friends, we have no enemies. We're going to go out there and go and say, you're looking for pages about fuel-efficient cars. Guess what? A blogger in Kansas City just wrote a post about fuel-efficient cars that, for whatever reason, struck a chord. Maybe, a senior columnist, a car and driver, retweeted it. Everyone's going to this page. That team of 15 people and their precious relationships, while it's great to get affordable inventory on the big brand names everyone knows, it's going to miss that opportunity. So now for, maybe 72 hours, there's a tidal wave of active shoppers going to some person's blog in Kansas City. Well, we're able to look at it with blinders on, saying, is the content relevant? Is it somewhere you'd want to appear? Is it quality? Is it, we only buy off of a strict whitelist. So it's kind of, we're saying at the outset, we're only even scoring or considering sites that you'd feel okay being on. So from there, that airbag recall example, how many neighborhood publications are all around the Detroit area? Or how many small town newspapers are there in Iowa, Minnesota, and Tennessee, pick your state, that would never come to light in that other example. And it's really the technology that's let that happen. If we couldn't cherry pick just that AP story about the Nissan airbag recall, you wouldn't want to be on those small newspaper sites. But because we can cherry pick it,
it's almost like the difference between Yahoo and Google back in the day, where it's like, Google was just more relevant because it didn't care about all the relationships or who was being paid or what was premium content or anything like that. It's just give me the right answer.
I'm searching for a 2015 Ford Mustang. It's a keyword search, right? That shows, theoretically, it shows intent. It could also indicate charlatan shoppers who are people who just want to look at pictures of the new Mustang.
Yeah.
Or want to, it's like car porn in a way. Like people who just want to look at awesome pictures of cars. Not necessarily, it could be indicative of a person who's shopping.
Yep.
But there's other keywords like, best deal on 2015. That's a different story. But if somebody's just keyword searching for 2015 Mustang, you don't necessarily know what the context is.
Right. Your point is terrific. As you said, the search itself gives you a lot of insight into their intent. So this is the closest thing. Search doesn't give you a lot of creative freedom because you have AdWords or something else appearing on the page.
Right?
This is the closest thing to search for premium content, for pre-roll, for something else like that. You're on this page for a reason. We know who this page was written to. We're going to match that relevant ad with it. And your Yahoo Google example, I think, is useful in another way, where Yahoo, 20 years ago was this big organized directory.
Right.
I want to go to finance. I want to go to stock market. I want to go to this. They organized that hierarchy.
Based on who paid them.
A lot of these people here, based on who paid them, are organizing a hierarchy. They've said, I have new car buyers, I have luxury car buyers, I have sports car buyers. How do they define luxury? How do they define sports? Do you agree with it? Do you not? Most importantly, they're not being visible about it. You don't know what definition they used.
Curious about, and I just thought of this because we're talking about indexing and hierarchy. How do you guys think? Two things. Before I get to I want to chat about mobile in a minute, but what about hashtagging, right, as a way of hierarchy and indexing, right? So that's like a big way of hashtag Mike's 39th birthday, go to the party.com. Right. So if people are organizing in terms of hashtags, whether it's
really
Twitter,
old though.
It's
that hashtag.
It's a really, really old hashtag. But so are you guys thinking about that, like as a way of contextualizing hierarchologically organizing? But I guess my point is like
that's a hashtag.
That is, as is hashtag high five. But that's not important right now. So like thinking about like hashtag and how consumers, especially particularly younger consumers, like Instagram and Twitter and Tumblr, hashtags are not boss, but they're in a way it's a great way to start thinking about as a marketer, advertiser, or a supplier, for that matter, about how do we generate a product or a solution around that?
Yeah, we're not looking at social data or referral data today, but I think that would be fascinating to say what are the URLs that are being linked to with a certain hashtag, be it a funny hashtag, a serious hashtag, what have you. It's a great taxonomy to kind of organize the web. How are people sharing content? We are taxonomy agnostic, where we don't organize things by any vocabulary or any dictionary. So that if someone comes to us and says, basically the way we work is we agree on a set of articles and we say, do these articles look like where you want to find your audience? And then we find tens of thousands that look just like them. So today, we've got this very custom model that lets your definition of fuel efficiency and your definition of fuel efficiency can be very different. We don't have an entry called fuel efficiency. We don't even have an entry called cars. It's come to the table with what that campaign is about, what the ad shows, what you're trying to do this month, and let's find content unique to that. So in a way, it's almost even this creative optimization, which is
experience in people in order to be able to make that. It's not just artificial intelligence; it's actual, like, real intelligence.
Yeah, real humans.
It's like wetware.
Humans.
Well, that's very interesting too, because now you're taking that whole artificial intelligence part of it, and then actually thinking about it from a context that it's like collective intelligence. It's like we don't care why people are there. We don't have to predict it. They're there.
Yeah.
So this is how we can then we can scale this to everything.
And we don't use cookies, we don't track the ID of your phone, and the way I describe it to people is we don't care where you've been.
Yeah.
We're not trying to predict where you're going. All we know is where you are now, and we found that to be a really reliable indicator of what's on your mind, much like the search data you were talking about, the search you just typed into your phone or somewhere else.
And that's interesting too, because even in the course of a given day, you might have 20 different things on your mind, and you don't really care about that wrench you were looking to buy.
Yes.
At right after, at any given point of the day. But at some point, you're going to come back to that to be interested in that. And then you're saying, you can say, wait, we'll put that ad out. Not only do we think this person in the market for it, but we think that they actually care about it right now.
Right. And that wrench,
that's pretty powerful.
That wrench that was relevant 2 hours ago, that's, that nature of the creepy retargeting that causes people to clear their cookies or go into incognito mode or something else. I just took the vacation to Europe. I just bought the engagement ring. I just did this. I just, whatever else. Yeah, it's like,
too late.
You've missed me.
Yeah.
Where were you a week ago? Where were you a day ago? So we don't have to basically, there's a lot of people sweating and spending a lot of energy trying to solve that problem. And we're saying we choose to solve other problems.
It's a uniquely different way of looking at it. It's completely different. It's